I welcome you all. And I want to give you some context of why I'm running this webinar today. So we have an international strategy currently at Elixir that is being updated and it will be published by the end of this month. And as part of our efforts to highlight, to raise the visibility of other mechanisms that Elixir nodes can use to promote international collaboration. We have this opportunity that we are going to speak today about, but we have many other things as mechanisms in the hub, as Elixir wide, such as our own staff exchange, travel grants that you can apply to as well to visit collaborators abroad for projects as well. Other mechanisms that are a bit more high level, such as memorandums of understanding, strategic partnerships with other counterparts around the world, for example, such as Australian Biocommons, the NIH that you might have heard. And we are constantly also having some presence in international conferences that are relevant for research infrastructures. So there are some things that we can use to promote international collaboration from Elixir. But as I mentioned, there are other great opportunities, such as the Marie Curie staff exchanges. So let me just give you an overview of the agenda that we have for today. Our UK national contact point for Marie Curie actions and Dr. Anya Byrne has kindly accepted our invitation to give a tailored webinar for the Elixir nodes on how to use this opportunity for international collaboration. So we will be hearing from her in a bit. And we have a success story with a University of Padua via Silvio Tosato, an Argentinian, using this mechanism to collaborate with Latin America. So we will be looking forward to hear about that. And later on, I will just give you a couple of items on how can we support you from the hub in your applications if you are encouraged after this webinar, and how can we support that. And there will be plenty of time for you to ask questions at the end. So I really encourage you to, if you have any doubts, if you have any ideas that you want to share. I know that from the audience, there are a couple of people that have also experience with Marie Curie staff exchanges from Elixir, so they are more than welcome also to share their experience later on with us if they decide to. And before I give the word to Anya, let me just tell you what is a national contact point, because I was a national contact point before when I was in Switzerland, and not many people seem to know that they are there to help you when it comes to Horizon Europe applications and funding. So NCPs, they are there to provide you with guidance, practical information, assistance in all aspects of Horizon Europe applications, from how to write your application, if you are eligible, if there are opportunities that you may fit. They are established not only in Europe, but also in many non-EU and non-associated countries. And I think that's something relevant, at least for these international collaborations. NCPs also try to give you as much as they can impartial advice, and they run frequently events about Horizon Europe, impact, different parts of the application. So you can check locally in your networks, and I'm pretty sure that Anya is gonna maybe mention this later. But you can keep an eye open also in your countries, in your network of NCPs. They are not only open to researchers, but also to academia, research infrastructures, industry, other organizations. So please do reach out to them. They are free of charge. And with this, I will be happy just to introduce then Anya. Anya, the floor is yours. I will let you share your screen, and happy to hear from you.
Yeah, hello, good morning, everyone. Nice to be with you. While I'm going to start sharing my screen. Yeah, as Andrea said, we are here to help you. We are here to support you, provide you with information as much as we can. And most importantly, we are free of charge. So that's very good. It's always an option. So I have been asked and invited to talk to you a bit about the staff exchanges, and I will try to hint to specifics for the Elixir and the Elixir notes where I can, but otherwise I'll kept it rather generic. But you're more than welcome to ask any questions. I hope to be able to answer them straight away. If not, I will take them back, or you can drop me a message. So first important thing is the email address down here, mariecurie-uk@acro.ac.uk, where I can be reached. And I can also guide you from there if you need any other NCPs. There are more of us. For example, the ERC and all the clusters have NCPs as well. Right, so let's get started. So I said ACRO. So we are the UK Research Office, and we support UK-based organizations involved in the European research and innovation area. And our mission is to maximize UK participation in Horizon Europe. By the way, you will receive these slides at some point, and there will be all the live links, so you can click on all the links you can see in here, including the ACRO portal, and there are dedicated news articles, events, and fact sheet to support your participation. And there are also alerts to upcoming opportunities and call updates, etc. We provide the national contact point services, as I said, for the European Research Councils, for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, for widening participation, for cost in the European Bauhaus. And also we are part of UKRI's international team, so we are very well connected. In my other half of my role, I look after everything for funding policy and Horizon Europe. Right, so good news, the UK is back into Horizon Europe. We have associated as of the 1st of January 2024, and we can take part in everything with a few exceptions, like the EIC Accelerator Investment Fund or Euratom. And if you followed the news recently, we have now more opportunities available from 2025. And you can find all this information also on the on the ACRO website. Now let's get started to MSCA. Don't know if you're familiar with it. If you are already a pro, listen. Don't listen if you're not. Just few things. So the MSCA sets out to support researcher training and career development. That's the main thing. Really to create impact on researchers, institutions, and systems, and to contribute to EU priorities such as the Green Deal, climate action, the European Research Area, and the European Education Area. And it does this through, first of all, encouraging people to become researchers and innovators, equipping them with the necessary skills and the international experience. So mobility is really key here. Mobility between international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary. By this, it supports long-term employability for researchers and innovators and makes the career opportunities more attractive, as well as employment conditions. You will see that, for example, salaries are quite generous and allowances. It fosters an innovation mindset and develops the entrepreneurial mindset. And there's also a strong collaboration with the non-academic sector. It fosters an R&I environment based on excellence in research, and not only in the researchers, but also in the organizations. And the excellence also goes towards training opportunities, for example. And it promotes the EU's global attractiveness for talents. Now, there are various actions, doctoral networks, postdoctoral fellowships, co-funds, and what's called citizens. And I'm going to focus on the staff exchanges, which promote various collaborations. Again, mobility is key in research and innovation. So, the basics are that staff exchange is a collaborative RNI project that is implemented through secondments. And through this, you're building new and existing, building new and develop existing networks and long-term collaborations. You increase global collaborations and also more between sectors. You enhance knowledge and idea transfer between the participants, or for the advancement of your field. For the researchers, you develop transferable skills, again, supporting this long-term employability, and you encourage the 3 dimensions of the mobility, intersectoral, international, and interdisciplinary. A staff exchange consortium, there is no typical size. You have to have a minimum of 3 partners from 3 countries, 2 of which must be from a member state or associated country. So in terms of Elixir nodes, for example, you could have your Spanish partner, and you could have UK, or you could have Italy and UK and Spain, etc. The size really depends of the needs of the project. It must be reasonable. Don't just add partners for the sake of adding partners because you think, oh, that one looks good on paper, I really need to add them. No, they have to have a sense. It needs to be in line with the project. Generally, and I'll come to that later in terms of funding, it is recommended that you have about 6 to 10 partners, but there are also some that only have the 3, the minimum, and there are some that have up to 20 partners. So it just gets a bit crowded with 20 partners. You have to coordinate this. This is very important. So there are 2 types of participants. They are the beneficiaries. They sign the grant agreement. They are located in a member state or associated country. They can send staff or host staff for secondments, and they provide training opportunities. The associated partners are located in what is called 3rd countries, so any country that is not associated to Horizon Europe. They can host seconded staff, obviously provide training, and in some instances, they can also send staff. That is very important, but I will get to that. Now, in general, the scheme is open to all countries and all nationalities. As I said, there are just the requirements on the minimum partners. It is open to all entities fulfilling the Horizon Europe rule for participation. So it doesn't matter if it is a research institute, a university, a SME, a multinational big industry partner. Anyone who's able to take part in Horizon will be able to take part in the staff exchanges. The staff exchanges themselves are between 1 and 12 months. The project itself can be up to 4 years, and you can request up to 360 person months. This is the limit, and this is where the limit on or the recommendation on partners comes from. If you have 20 partners, really distributing these 360 person months is a bit tricky. As I said, the consortium is composed of beneficiaries in the EU member states or associated country and 3rd country associated partners. As I said, any legal entity can be taken part. It's either academic or non-academic. Now, legal entities can be a bit tricky when it comes to a international organization like Elixir that is distributed across the whole of Europe. So what we looked at was that in your case, I think is it the Spanish part, the node is hosted, I think, in Barcelona, if I remember that correctly. So this node, for example, if it wants to work with EBI in Cambridge, one of them would have to apply as where they're hosted. So for example, at the university in Barcelona would have to apply not as Elixir, but at the host in the country. so that you really have the separate legal entities. Again, as I said, you must have 2 member states or associated countries. You also need to look at which sector. So if they're all from the same sector, at least one of them must be a third country consortium. Academic sector is defined as public or private higher education establishments awarding academic degrees, public or private non-profit research organizations, or international European research organizations, and non-academic as everything that doesn't fit the academic definition. For the secondi, the staff that actually goes on the secondments, they are under direction and instructions of the sending organization for the duration of the secondment. So if you send somebody from Cambridge to Australia, they would still be under the direction of Cambridge. They must be actively engaged in or linked to an RNI activity at the sending institution for at least 1 month prior to the first secondment. So you can't start on the 1st of March in Cambridge and then go off to Australia on the 2nd. No, you would have to wait until April to go to Australia. Obviously, they need to be appropriately experienced to undertake the activities. They must work full-time while on secondment, that's important, even if they usually work part-time. However, they can split the secondment in several stays. So if you want to go to Australia for 6 months, you can say, oh, I'll go for a month first and then come back for 5 at a later point. And also, seconded staff members do not have to be researchers. However, they need to be contributing to the actual research objectives to the project. That's sometimes a bit of a tricky one and needs a bit of a case by case, but in theory, you don't have to be a researcher to be sent on secondment. Now, the project should have clear RNI objectives and deliverables, and secondments should be essential to achieve those. You need to exploit complementary competencies of the participating organizations. So if your partner is also very good at, data management of a certain area, there's no point in adding them. You know, they have to be, you know, data production maybe. It needs to support the networking activities and the organization of workshops and conferences. So, you know, you have to come together and actually make use of what you're doing as a consortium, and also facilitate sharing of the knowledge and testing innovative approaches for the specific RNI topics, and create the synergies between the partners. And yeah, it needs to offer that the secondis actually generate new skills and have increased career development perspectives through this. It should add to their career and their employability. As I said, mobility is key here. Intersectoral, international, interdisciplinary. The partners contribute directly to the implementation of a joint RNA project by the secondments. The secondments must always take place between the legal entities, independent from each other, and the secondments must be essential to achieve the objectives. And all this is to increase international exposure, increase RNI capacity, attract top researchers, must not forget this, very important, increase employability, career prospects, and enhance existing and new collaborative networks. I know that I'm repeating a lot of things, but I cannot say this often enough because this is really important. So the secondments themselves and all this information can be found in the guide for applicants. They must be intersectoral, so from an academic to a non-academic, or interdisciplinary, but then they are restricted to 1/3 of the person month, or they must be to a third country. So if you have a look, and you will be able to study this rather complicated looking figure when you have the slides, It will make sense eventually, I promise. You see where you can go and where you cannot go. As I said, you must be at the sending institution for at least 1 month prior, have the appropriate experience, etc.
Anya, we cannot hear you. Or
Oh, can you still not hear me?
I hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, that's very good. And the way interdisciplinarity is actually established is based on the MSCA keywords. So when you apply, you will have to apply certain keywords that are given to your application. And if they're obviously from 2 different disciplines, that will establish interdisciplinarity. So you will have to look into that. As I said, secondments can be split. You can between one or several beneficiaries or associate partners. Obviously, still the maximum or minimum duration needs to be taken into account. All the secondments must take place within the duration of the action, so within the maximum of 4 years. And each secondee must must complete at least 1 month or 30 days of a secondment to claim for funding. Now, how can third countries be involved? They can host secondees. They can send staff on secondments if they are from a third country that is on a low middle income list. These countries, and for example, Argentina is on this list. They are eligible to receive funding from Horizon Europe. Third countries must still be providing training and networking opportunities. They contribute to advisory committees and the project boards. They also participate in network activities, are a key stakeholder, and provide background expertise and other resources. So they're fully involved in the project, even sending staff if they are on the third country list for low and middle income countries. Now to money. So as I said, the maximum EC funding can be for 360 person month. There is no country coefficient, and it is done via unit costs. So you get a certain amount of money, and you don't have to apply for a specific, you just get the units. The funding is not to replace any salaries of seconded staff. So while you send your staff out, they will still be paid their salaries. The amount that you get from the European Commission can be used flexibly as long as the researcher still receives their full allowance. The advantage of the unit cost is there's no detailed financial reporting. As I said, there are third country participants that can automatically get EC funding. And very important, everyone must understand the rules. You know, as a beneficiary, as somebody who signs the grant agreement, you're responsible for making sure that everything is reported and used properly. So really make sure that everyone that is involved understands the rules. So what you get. So the total you can get per person month is 5,010 euros. Please be aware everything is paid in euros. And 1 unit is 1 month of eligible staff that is going off. The sending organization will get the money, and you will have to have an agreement in place how this money is distributed then to the hosting organization. You will receive 2,710 euros of staff member unit cost. that contributes to their travel, accommodation, subsistence, that must fully go to the researcher. And that is, however, paid according to what your organization has set up internal policies. So it can, in accordance with national rules on taxes, national security, blah, blah, blah. But then there's also a special needs allowance if needed. That is extra. Then you have 1,300 euros for research, training, and networking. That contributes to what it says on the tin, research expenses, training, networking. And then you have 1,000 euros of management and indirect costs. That's basically the overheads for the organization. So how does it work in practice? The beneficiaries declare all the costs in individual statements for the outgoing secondments of their own staff and the incoming secondments from a third country partner that is eligible for funding. And the beneficiaries must also then complete a mobility declaration, i.e. saying who has been where and when, for their own staff and for the incoming secondments from third country partners if they're eligible for funding. As I said, if it has been agreed by the consortium, there can be a different distribution of institutional costs. They can be shared, and this will not be reported in the financial statements. If you do not have a secondment, you will not get any of the costs. So really the cost, the funding that you receive is reliant on the secondment. No secondment, no money. And if you are hosting third country partner secondments, you as the beneficiary are responsible to actually declare the costs. And with that, I'm nearly at the end. That was whistle stop tour. Now I can tell you everything is on the EU funding and tenders portal. The call is already open since the end of March. You still have plenty of time for preparing your proposal, which closes on the 8th of October. Deadline is 5 o'clock Brussels time. So if you're anywhere else in the world, please make sure you do not miss this. So if you're in the UK, it's 4 p.m. If you're in South America, totally different time. I'll leave that to you. You will hear in March 26 of the outcome. Potentially sign the grant agreement in June and then start in September 2026. Now, you can submit early and submit often. So if you submit on the portal your project, you can go back in and change things and, make it better. And whatever is on the system and submitted at the time of the deadline will be collected by the Commission. So you can, if you suddenly wake up in the middle of the night and realize you've made a horrible mistake, if it's before the deadline, no problem. Get on the computer in the morning and sort it out. You will be good. That leaves me to just show a list of resources. So there is a very good homepage on how to apply. And oops, I will change that. I left the fellowships in. If you're interested in them, I can leave them in. Sorry, I will change this to the staff exchanges. There is a MSCA financial guide, which is very good, which gives you the basics. Obviously the work program, the funding tenders portal, the strategic plan, and the program guide in just as it is. Yeah, and thank you. That was a whistle stop tour. I hope I could share some information with you and hopefully raise some interest. And happy to take any questions now or after Silvia's presentation.
Thank you so much, Anya. Very nice presentation. I do have some questions, but I think we take it better at the Q&A. And with this, I would like to just give the floor to Silvio. And Silvio's going to share his experience, and then we will come back all together to answer questions from the participants, if that's okay. Thank you, Anya. Silvio, please.
Okay, thank you. You see my screen, right?
Yes.
Good. So I've been asked to share our experience with the Marie Curie Staff Exchange as a success story. First of all, I have to say that we are currently coordinating our third Marie Curie Staff Exchange, so it's been good for us. And before I start to get into the actual details of the Marie Curie Staff Exchange, let me explain where this is coming from and how it's collected to Elixir. So, as you probably know, Elixir has communities, and the communities are there to provide science topics or technology topics. And in our specific case, which you will see, we have been quite good at exploiting the combination between Elixir and the Marie Curie Staff Exchange. We are related to the IDP community, which is for intrinsically disordered proteins. There are currently 3 co-leads to this, one being Maria Cristina Spramonte, who's from our lab here in the University of Padua. The second co-lead being Gabor Erdos from the ELTE University in Budapest in Hungary. And the third one currently being Wim Franken from the Free University in Brussels in Belgium. So before I get into the actual project, give me just 2 slides to explain in a nutshell what IDPs are and why they should be of interest, because Marie Curie Staff Exchanges are mostly about the scientific excellence. And that is the one key subject to address. And in our case, intrinsically disordered proteins came onto the stage around 15 years ago. So before that, they were a bit of a niche topic. But then, thanks also to this Nature editorial, which came out in 2011, breaking the protein rules, it became obvious that there were a lot of proteins out there which were just not following the classic paradigm that you have one sequence, one structure, one function. And so this posed a set of scientific problems which we have been trying to tackle ever since. So IDPs, in a nutshell, they are thought to be at least 1/3 of the human proteome in terms of amino acids. That's about 3 to 4 million amino acids, so quite substantial. They form around, according to one estimate, 100,000 transient, conditional, and regulatory interaction modules. They are on the shorter end of these things. So we're talking about regions which can be anything between around 10 residues for a binding motif, which is disordered and binds to a globular protein, to single post-translational modification sites. So a single phosphorylation site is just one residue. And indeed, around 70% of experimentally validated post-translational modification sites have been shown to be in intrinsically disordered regions. Now, further to that, when AlphaFold came out and AlphaFold DB had predictions for all of the human proteome and other model organisms, it turns out that AlphaFold itself has around 40% of the residues in the various proteomes, which are predicted with very low quality. So again, this is an indirect indication that these are probably the disordered parts of the proteome. So it's substantial. We're talking about almost half the proteome, and it's a part which had been widely neglected in terms of studies. And indeed, leading up to the IDP community, we had, for the build-up phase, a cost action, which I've been leading between 2015 and 2019, which was around non-globular proteins. And for the record, cost actions are another European funding instrument, which is there just for the networking part of science. You have to cover as many different countries in Europe as possible. And they give you money in order to organize events, short-term staff exchanges, and to work around a common program, which is not per se funded. So it gives you the instruments to build a community. And in fact, one of the key goals of cost actions is to look for follow-up funding. And this is precisely what we did. So essentially, the European part of the consortium, which we went on and then turned into our Marie Curie Staff Exchange proposal, was born out of the cost action. So I can warmly recommend to participate in cost actions if the topic is of interest to you, because you can find like-minded colleagues, get to know each other, and this will form the basis for developing also staff exchange proposals. So in our specific case, the IDP community was also kind of coming out of this cost action. And this is the roadmap paper we published in F1000 a couple of years ago. And briefly put, these are the 5 goals of the IDP community. So it's all related to Elixir, because we want to simplify IDP data access and dissemination, drive the curation of the literature for IDPs, develop a centralized knowledge base for IDP data, integrate IDP data into the Elixir core data resources, and improve tools for IDP analysis. So you see how the two things fit together and why also the technological objectives of Elixir are very relevant for the science we were trying to do. And remember that this at that time was still novel, so there was a lot of integration to be done. This data was not available in the core data resources. We helped to make that happen through the Staff Exchange and also some other instruments. And this leads me to the first of our Staff Exchange projects, which was called IDP Fun. Now, of course, this is a funny way to put together the two concepts we were trying to express, which is intrinsically disordered proteins on one hand, and the functional characterization on the other hand, because the function was at that time the part which was largely missing. So the title per se is Driving Functional Characterization of Intrinsically Disordered Proteins. It was an MSCA staff exchange funded between 2018, and due to the COVID extension and the pandemic has caused us a lot of headaches, because of course secondments have to be in presence. And now imagine the pandemic and having to live through that. It gave us a 1-year no-cost extension. And eventually we suspended all the activities and restarted them after the end of the COVID pandemic. But yeah, it has caused some upheaval. Nevertheless, this was a staff exchange involving around 50 people, 5 partners in Europe and 3 partners in Argentina. You see on the maps the geographic distribution within Europe and in Argentina. And of the 5 European partners, the 3 on the top represent the 3 institutions which are also the co-leads of the IDP community. That would be UniPD, ELTE, and VUB. In this case, 2 of the faces are not the ones you've seen before, because there has been a changing of the guard, and so we have younger participants now as co-leads of the community. The other 2 being University College Dublin and Toby Gibson from EMBL in Heidelberg. On the Argentinian side, we had 3 partners, which we already knew before, because, again, for disclosure, I have some active collaboration with Argentina for around a decade. I used to live there as a child for a couple of years, and therefore I'm fluent in Spanish, and one thing leads to the other. So we had been cultivating our contacts in Argentina for a while, and so the staff exchange with Marie Curie was an excellent opportunity to put 2 good things together and to make it work. In total, we had 287 person months for this project, and the distribution was about 80% of the secondments going from Argentina to the European Union and 20% going the other way around. At the end, we implemented over 99.8% of the secondments, and the remainder is just a fraction of a few days, dates which were off here and there. So essentially, we completed everything we set out to do. I should also add that in our case with Argentina, the interest was matching, because for Argentinian scientists, especially PhD students and postdocs, usually going abroad, which means either to the US or to Europe, is a very good opportunity for their careers, both to grow personally and also to enrich their curriculum. So there was a strong interest from the Argentinian side to move people to Europe to do secondments. And on the other way around, we complemented that with secondments in order to make sure that we would drive the science behind the project as well, and also to leverage all the opportunities we have from the Argentinian research community, which in our case was very good, for instance, for curating data on IDPs. So it really was a win-win situation for both sides. Now, the project itself was composed of 4 scientific work packages plus a dissemination and management one, which is pretty standard for these types of projects. So we have a knowledge foundation, which is based on the databases which are available in this field. This was an entirely computational project. And it starts from the state of the art in our field, which we already knew because of the previous work. So anything we were proposing within these 4 work package was flowing kind of naturally from the current state of the art and improving beyond that. So there was, at that stage, the function detection, function classification, the functional mechanisms, and then of relevance, translation, and deployment, which is where the Elixir component came in, because translation in our case means bringing this data into the Elixir core data resources. And deployment also means making our infrastructure more robust so that the databases we are hosting, MobiDB, Disprot, and PAD, become more professional. And this was widely acknowledged to be successful. So here you see the breakdown in the work packages and the number of person months involved. So they are always quite substantial. The actual organizational structure of our consortium is this one. So again, it's fairly standard. We have a supervisory board, which means that we had all the PIs from the project partners, 8 people in this case, 1 per institution, an external advisory board, which gives external advice. This is scientists who are contributing to their knowledge to help the discussions around what we should be doing specifically. We had a quality and ethics committee for monitoring EU policies, for instance, gender balance and young researchers. And the core of this was then the executive board, composed of the project coordinator, myself, plus 1 Argentinian and 1 European partner, and our project manager, which were taking the day-to-day decisions. The supervisory board usually meets around 3 times per year. So really the day-to-day work is done by the coordinator with the help from the project support team. And here, one thing we found out is that having a dedicated project manager, in our case is Diana Battistella, was really making a difference, because you need someone to act as contact point between all the participants, also because we were having a lot of travel from Argentina to Europe, and we were centralizing those parts so that essentially at some points, it almost felt like we were a travel agency organizing all the secondments for the Argentinians in Europe, but it worked out very well thanks to our project manager. So this was the first project. And then last year, we applied for another one since the first one was successful. So the new one is called IDP Fund 2. And the subtitle is a bit longer this time. So it's integrating novel data, artificial intelligence, and molecular behavior to expand functional characterization of intrinsically disordered proteins. So what happens here? Well, essentially 2 changes. The first one being AlphaFold and artificial intelligence, and there's no way you can get around that. So we are actively integrating the artificial intelligence component into our consortium and the activities. And the second one was that we achieved a number of things in order to characterize the functions of IDPs. And therefore, again, we start from the state of the art and we go beyond that to show the excellence of the project. And this is what has been funded. So the project is running, sorry, there's a typo, it's 2024 to 2028. It will involve circa 80 people, because this time we went for the full 360 person months. Since we know before that we were able to manage a high amount of person months, this time we went for the maximum. And we now have 7 partners in Europe and 5 partners in Argentina. And the growth of this, the new partners, so some of the faces are the same as before, some of them are new, came from our ADECT experience with another Marie Curie Staff Exchange project, which I won't be talking about because it's not about IDPs. So we basically picked and chose the partners which were working well together. And so the second staff exchange is based largely on this premise that you need people you know will deliver and that you get along well with and who are reliable. And this is also one of our key take-home messages. So in this case, here you see the schema for the project itself. I think, again, for scientific work packages, plus dissemination, communication, and exploitation, there are interlinks now more explicit with the core data resources from Elixir, and also with different consortia, which are in this field, gene ontology, the HuPOPSI, but also another cost action. And here you see the distribution with the logos of the various participating organizations. So not everyone is everywhere. We try to distribute things a bit better. So we learn from the experience of the previous project and try to make it better. Again, the proportion is roughly 80% travels from Argentina to Europe and 20% the other way around. And with that, I will finish just with a bit of practical advice. So I've been going over this and I thought, what are some of the lessons we learned out of this? First of all, is that implementing the secondments requires dedication and effort. So it's by no means a given. And if there are no secondments, there is no unit costs which are being generated and there is no money. So you really need to make sure that the secondments are implemented. And in order to achieve that, my advice would be to select partners you know and trust. So it's more important to get people to have people join that you know will be doing the things that they are set out to do, rather than to have any big name. The common interests are crucial for the project. So really the science behind this is the glue, because ultimately people will devote a lot of their staff and a lot of the person months of their staff only if they see a scientific benefit in this. So this is one of the important parts to keep in mind. Then one of the advantages of the Marie Curie Staff Exchange scheme is that the financial arrangements can be flexible. So having the right allocation of funds, this is the research, training, and networking contribution, and this is the management and indirect cost contribution, helps to make the project more attractive for partners. For instance, what we did in our projects is that usually the research, training, and networking component goes not to the sending lab, but to the hosting lab as a sort of bench fees to make it more attractive to actually host people. And this has worked out well for us. And then last but not least, keeping everything on track requires good management. So you need to make sure that you have the capacity to, the coordinator has the capacity to do a proper job. So here, having the right person as project manager is crucial. And in our case, I have to say our special thanks to Diana Battistella for keeping everything running now for 6 years. And it would have been very different without having a dedicated project manager. But again, this is something you can, someone you can hire if you get the project funded. So you don't need to have the person already before, although it might help if you do. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Silvio. So I'm just gonna have 1 more minute to finish this part before I allow the participants to make some questions. So how can the hub support, basically? So, you know, you have me here, and I can try to help as much as I can with anything related to your international collaborations. Please do reach out to me. I also have experience with NCP, so I'm more than happy also to put you in contact. As Anya also mentioned, mobility is the key essence of the Marie Curie staff exchanges. Not only mobility internationally, but also mobility in topics, and also, for example, with industry. So you also have an industry officer at the hub that you can reach out to, and she will be more than happy also to support in case that's something that you can, you want to use this exchange for. I prepare also a fact sheet on how to use these staff exchanges tailored to the nodes. So we know that in the nodes, there are some special, for example, associated countries like the UK, now Switzerland also recently, and some members for ISO Europe that can apply normally. I reviewed each country, each node, and I specifically said whether you can apply, you cannot, this is where you should do, etc. And yeah, reach out because we may be able to connect you with partners that we may have heard in other regions, Latin America, in Africa, in Australia, in Canada. So do so. And just to complement the tips that they have been already given, there are also networks of NCPs abroad, such as, for example, the national contact points from Latin America and the Caribbean. EURASEX also having different in international in different countries. So do check that. And I will follow with an email with some of the links that I think could be useful for you. So having said that, I'll be happy to answer your questions. And